Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which can be found wherever fine digital streaming apps are given away because they are free to download, free to use, and sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. Not quite a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way because we are almost singularly focused on the basketball game last night, but we'll mix in some Avs. Mike Vrabel spoke, so the TMZ portion of the sports fan audience can get into that as well. Love to get your thoughts on all of it. 719-247-1313. You could call or text into the show. And producer Ray eagerly awaiting your call and standing by. Now, I thought that the Nuggets were supposed to learn from that Game 7 a couple years ago against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And there was a lot of things to learn. I'll give them at least that amount of leeway. Among those lessons that the Nuggets were supposed to learn, don't sacrifice everything to get the highest pick you can. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and you may put yourself in a worse position moving forward. Jamal Murray needs to take care of his body, be in shape, be healthy. And you can't be overly reliant on Nikola Jokic in Jamal Murray. You're going to be relying on them, just you're going to need some other guys to chip in. And I think they've learned most of those lessons, but there's another one that they were supposed to learn from that game and clearly did not. It's when you have the Minnesota Timberwolves down, you need to keep them there. I felt like I was watching Game 7 all over again last night. The Denver Nuggets blowing another massive lead to Minnesota in a playoff game. They had this team right where they wanted them. I mean, all we heard coming out of Game 1 was, man, the referees won't call fouls. That they were just complaining about the officiating. Jaden McDaniels is shoving Nikola Jokic for no reason. I mean, the Timberwolves weren't locked in. They were worried about other things than the Denver Nuggets. And it showed in the first quarter because the 4-and-1s on three-point attempts, like, that's just atrocious. That's a team that is not locked in and ready to go. And I think part of Minnesota, and I heard that put this way by Brian Scalabrine, who was on the call last night, they're kind of an immature basketball team. Like, they very much let their emotions get the best of them. They don't keep the main thing. And the Denver Nuggets took full advantage of that in the first quarter. And you have this team down 19. You're up 19 points early in the second quarter at home. You cannot convince me that is a lead you can't hang on to. You just can't. I looked it up online. Teams leading into these playoffs, the last 5 years, I just took a random sample size, 2021 to 2025. Teams that have a 19-point lead or better in the first quarter of a playoff game were 120-3. So don't tell me that the Denver Nuggets can't hang on to this lead, that, oh, Minnesota's too good. Don't tell me that. The Nuggets absolutely could have kept that team at bay for the rest of this game if they are the championship contender that they think they are. So this is not about, oh, basketball is a game of runs or Minnesota's a good team. I don't care. You got to bury that team. And the Nuggets didn't. Here's David Adelman on what happened in that second quarter.
They attacked our feet. They got in the paint. Once they got in the paint, we were scrambling in rotations. We tried to zone them. That didn't go well either. And so we eventually got to the cross match, which was much better than the first two things we tried. So give them credit. We had a great first quarter. They had a great second quarter. The game basically restarted from there.
Yeah, but I don't like that. I don't like that. Give them credit. No, I'm not going to give Minnesota credit. You were up by 19. You need to figure it out. Now, the Wolves, I will say this. The Wolves made it much easier on the Nuggets defense and made them look better than they really were in game one because there was a lot of ISO ball. They weren't moving the ball around the perimeter. Nuggets did not have an issue defending Minnesota for the most part in game one, and a lot of that was on Minnesota. And you saw last night that when Minnesota moves the ball around, the Nuggets look completely helpless. Completely helpless. You have guys flying past shooters constantly because they're over-rotating and they can't get back quick enough, and everyone's got to help everybody because of their deficiencies on the defensive end. So while what David Adelman says there is true on one end of the floor, it is not a new phenomenon that the Denver Nuggets are not a good defensive team. I'm kind of a little bit more preoccupied with the other end of the floor because last time I checked, there are two sides to the court. There's offense and there's defense. Yeah, Minnesota was going to be better offensively. The Nuggets are not a good defensive team, but they're supposed to be an all-world offensive team. And they were, after going up 19, they proceeded to miss their next 5 shots. Okay, and 4 of those 5 did not come within 15 feet of the basket. And I know the first quarter, everything was falling, but I just felt like the Nuggets just felt like they were going to ride this out. We'll get back to shooting the way we did in the first quarter. It's okay. That second quarter was the moment where you could have buried this team. And the Nuggets are settling for jump shots. No one is attacking the rim. Getting fouled, just something to stem the tide a little bit, please. We knew they weren't going to get stops, but can someone get a bucket? Can someone get to the line? They were up 19 points, and you blinked, and it was gone. That game went from a 19-point Nuggets lead to an 8-point Nuggets lead in the snap of a finger. That's inexcusable. That can't happen. That's where the game was squandered. We'll get to the fourth quarter coming up in the next segment because, yes, there were some issues with the fourth quarter as well, but we get too focused on the end of things, what happens in the fourth quarter of games. Sometimes the most important moments are way earlier in the game. And being up 19 points and not only not being able to stretch that lead, but immediately giving it up, that's what that's what toppled the first domino for all these others to fall and the Nuggets to eventually lose this game. And even if you acknowledge the Nuggets are not a good defensive team and you don't have a problem with their shot selection, how about another piece to the puzzle that could maybe stem the tide a little bit? How about getting on the glass? How about creating easier looks by getting second chance opportunities? How about limiting Minnesota to one and done? David Adelman puts a premium on that.
We lost this game on second chance points. I mean, every time we had control of this game, we get a free throw rebound, a really soft, crash from the corner. Nobody touches anybody. I mean, 20-3 in a playoff game is, in a hard-fought game like that where you work so hard to get a stop and then just give up second chance points, it kept them in the game. Every time we made a run, I felt like that's what stopped the run. And that's something we have to clean up as a team.
And that's effort. That's all that is. That's effort. The Nuggets are not giving up pounds and inches to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay, they have Nikola Jokic, they have Jonas Valanciunas, they have Aaron Gordon. They have guys that are more than capable of getting rebounds. So to be outscored 20-3 in second chance opportunities, that's just the Nuggets getting outworked. That's just the Nuggets not being the more desperate team. And I get it. You're up 1-0. It's hard to match that desperation, but the good teams do it. And it's like, you know, I know people around here hate when you evoke the name of the team in the Sooner State, but the Oklahoma City Thunder, they routinely take a 15-point lead and stretch it to 20. They routinely figure out a way to raise their desperation level enough to keep battling and to put teams away. And the Denver Nuggets throughout this season have not shown that ability, that killer instinct, if you will. Rebounding is effort. Unless you are greatly outmatched in terms of the size of your opponent, which the Nuggets are not, it's just about effort. It's just about want to. The Wolves wanted that game more than the Denver Nuggets. Denver Nuggets had the first quarter, and they thought Minnesota was going to roll over and go away. The Minnesota Timberwolves are a little bit different. They're not that much different. I thought it was the little differences between these two teams that would ultimately make the difference in this series. And look, this is not me saying that the Nuggets are done, okay? But we're not going to gloss over a wretched performance like that because we still believe that the Nuggets will ultimately win this series. I thought the differences between these two teams as opposed to what they were 2 years ago, with the lessons learned by the Denver Nuggets in that series 2 years ago, would make the difference. But it's not to say that these teams are wildly different. The Minnesota Timberwolves, if you give them a little bit of juice, if you let them get going, like they can be as confident as any team in the NBA. But conversely, if you keep your foot on their throats, metaphorically speaking, they will lose that confidence. And the Nuggets had an opportunity in the second quarter to be able to sap that confidence even more from Minnesota. Instead, they gave them a ton of it. And then they were in a battle, as David Adelman said, in the second half. And this is not a new phenomenon this year or in the playoffs. The Denver Nuggets now 1-5 in their last 6 game twos. And I talked about this yesterday. It's in part because this team lets their foot off the gas way too much. They have their deficiencies, and certainly those deficiencies were on full display last night. They are not a perfect team. And despite what I said about Oklahoma City earlier, they are not a perfect team. They're the closest we got to it, but they're not perfect. Deficiencies of a team you can live with, right? There's a salary cap. You can't fix everything. But the mentality that you have in a game, you can absolutely control. Going into the second quarter, it should have been, or going into last night, it should have been, let's give this team no hope. Let's be ruthless. And after that first quarter, it should have kept up. It said, now we got them right where we wanted them. And not to sound like Dennis Green from all those years ago, but they let him off the hook. And then Minnesota gave them a battle the rest of the way that the Nuggets could not win. Murray, Jokic, gassed. But it just didn't have. And I give credit to Minnesota. I thought Rudy Gobert was outstanding, but it shouldn't have come down to that. You can't cough up a lead of 19 points as quickly as you get it. Now, the only good thing that we could say about game 2 was that it wasn't a game 7. So the Nuggets live to fight another day. And what you hope is that the lesson can be learned now. And you couple that with a little bit of prodding, a little bit of smack talk that we'll get into later from the Minnesota Timberwolves. You hope that the Nuggets come out in game 3 better. But they're going to have to fight for their lives because they're going into Minnesota. That building is going to be buzzing. The team they're playing is going to be full of confidence, having taken home court. The Nuggets had a chance to not make this a big-time battle in the first round, and they blew it. They absolutely blew it. Now they're going to have to fight tooth and nail just to get out of this series. And then they got 2 more just like it coming up. And if they even emerge victorious after those 2, they probably have another long series ahead of them in the NBA Finals. Squandered opportunity, at the very least, for the Denver Nuggets. Thought 2024 was a lesson. Maybe a lesson that needs to be retaught to the Denver Nuggets. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on game 2. Here's a piece of good news out of the Nuggets game last night. The Avalanche play tonight. We'll get into game 2 of their series and what to expect coming up, but I want to stick with the loss last night, the absolute squandered opportunity by the Denver Nuggets to put the Minnesota Timberwolves in a spot that they would not climb out of. I promise you. Nuggets go up 2-0 in this series, the Wolves are done. I'm not saying it's a sweep, but I'm saying there's no way that the Wolves are coming back from a 2-0 series deficit. And I just don't understand why the Denver Nuggets didn't have that mentality. And we do compare the Avs to the Nuggets a lot on this show, and I think it's fair. The Avalanche, last night, and I'm going to say this and then tune in tonight for game 2, and who knows what's going to happen. But we have this kind of conversation around the Avalanche far less often. Like, I can at least say that. I'm not going to guarantee that we don't get something similar from the Avalanche tonight, if for no other reason than I don't want to put it in the universe. But I'm saying historically, since these two teams have entered these championship windows and won titles, conversations like we're having today occur much more around the Denver Nuggets than they do the Avalanche. So I guess that gives you, if you're a fan of both, a little bit more confidence that you will not, again, be going to bed very, very late this evening angry. Because that's what I have been told, is that it's not a good idea to go to bed angry. So hopefully the Avs can pick everybody up here in the state of Colorado. But I want to talk more about last night, because I continue to say it's the second quarter. The second quarter is where the Nuggets lost things last night, where they lost control of the game, and then they found themselves in a very familiar place with the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is an absolute dogfight. So, in order of importance, the second quarter goes above the fourth quarter. But even with that being said, there were moments, there were opportunities, there was a whole quarter for the Denver Nuggets to still try and pull that game out, and they just couldn't. And I'm wondering why. I'm wondering what, other than the fact that no one got more injured, what the advantage of resting guys the last 2 games of the season were. I'm really trying to think about what the benefit was, because then they had a week off, essentially. They looked rusty game 1 in the first quarter. And I watched last night, and everybody is gassed in the fourth quarter again. Like, I thought we were at least going to wait till game 7 till we're talking about Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets being tired. I mean, they were tired in game 2 of round 1. And look, I get, there are certain people that I will omit from the criticism today. I think Jamal Murray deserves as much of a pass as anybody. That dude in back-to-back games now has been, I think, you could argue the Nuggets' best player. And him being gassed in the fourth quarter, I think you can understand it. I think Jokic, you can understand it, because you have to give credit to Rudy Gobert, because Gobert had him in a straitjacket in the fourth quarter. I mean, and I know Rudy Gobert is, the NBA's biggest martyr. And he had some comments yesterday about not being one of the finalists for Defensive Player of the Year. Like, That dude is such a martyr. Always woes me. But at any rate, he played great defense against Nikola Jokic in that fourth quarter. But even with that being said, can we try something different than just give the ball to Jokic and have him back down Rudy Gobert? Like, does Jokic have to set screens for everybody else, but no one can set up a screen for him? It felt like for most of that fourth quarter, the Nuggets offense was give the ball to Jokic and have him just start from above the free throw line and just start backing down Rudy Gobert. Like, that's got to be a little bit tiring for Jokic too. So the reason why Nikola Jokic is gassed, I got to put that a little bit on David Adelman here. Can you be a little bit more creative on ways to get, and also too with the way that Gobert was playing defense? Like, you don't think you need to do something a little bit different to try and free up Nikola Jokic? No, just give him the ball and he's just going to back down Rudy Gobert time and time again. But the guy, though, that was tired, that I'm like, why are you tired? Aaron Gordon. Like, I barely noticed him throughout the entirety of the game until he popped up with that clutch 3-point shot. Good on him for that. I barely noticed the guy. 8 points and 7 rebounds, and Aaron Gordon is gassed at the end of the game. David Adelman said it was because he had to bring the ball up the court. Which doesn't fill you with confidence if you're a Nuggets fan, right? Why is everybody tired? Because they had to bring the ball up the court. Can we run a press breaker or something then? Can someone set a screen in the backcourt, free somebody up? Bringing the ball up the court is taxing guys. But it doesn't bode well that the Nuggets are gassed in the fourth quarter of game 2 in a series that now is, I think, certainly going to go 6, right? I mean, theoretically, it could go 5, or mathematically, it could go 5, but I expect it to go at least 6. And then you have the Spurs, Thunder, and maybe the Celtics waiting for you, which are not series you're going to get through quickly. But accepting that the game came down to the final 2 quarters, that it was basically a 2-quarter game. The Nuggets squandered the second quarter lead, so it became a 2-quarter basketball game. You can't win when your best 2 players are 2 for 12 from the field in the fourth quarter. And Jokic was airballing shots. But that being said, as much as Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic struggled, I still want Nikola Jokic taking that floater. I still do not want him giving the ball to Christian Brown in that moment. Second to last possession, Nikola Jokic is driving. If you're going to give the ball to Christian Brown, like, throw it up. Like, it was open for Jokic to throw it over the defender. So whether you're going to throw an alley-oop to Christian Brown or whether you're going to take the floater, it's better than what happened. First of all, the pass was nearly stolen. But then you're giving it to Christian Brown. There's no way he was going to make a shot off of that. And then you put him on the line, and everybody watching knew he was not going to make both free throws. The guy stepped up to the line, and he looked like he was petrified. And he had just missed a free throw earlier. So, yes, Nikola Jokic did not play well in that fourth quarter. Rudy Gobert deserves some credit for that. I still want Jokic to take a shot on the second to last possession of the game rather than Christian Brown. And David Adelman after the game said, well, best player in the world, smartest player in the world, I trust his judgment, and I expect him to defer in that way. But even Nikola Jokic admitted what we were all thinking.
Yeah, but I thought I had him and kind of step up and jump in here. I thought I had a pass, but I should definitely take that forward.
Which brings us to the ongoing debate about what is the best version of Nikola Jokic for this basketball team. And when should a particular version of Nikola Jokic show up in a basketball game? Now, I am of the mind that it is more important to make sure Jamal Murray gets going in games, scoring the basketball, than Nikola Jokic. But last night, Jamal Murray, didn't he knock down like his first shot? So like it didn't take very long to make it look like Jamal Murray was ready to go for that game. The next guy is Nikola Jokic. I understand he's unselfish. He wants to get everybody involved. And when Nikola Jokic can spread the wealth and get a lot of guys involved, the Nuggets are really scary offensively. But I got to make sure that Nikola Jokic is able to get buckets. Right? And it's not a clear-cut moment all the time. Right? But you gotta kind of figure it out if you're Nikola Jokic when that point is. And again, I go back to the second quarter. Nuggets miss a couple of shots in a row. I think that's where Nikola Jokic goes, okay, we'll get back to you later. Our lead has been cut in half. Now I'm going to go to work. Jamal Murray needs to get going first. But Nikola Jokic can come along soon after. And I just think in that second quarter, he did not take enough shots. And then in the third and fourth quarter, because the Nuggets had no choice, he had to take a ton of shots, and he's dealing with Rudy Gobert. I just think Jokic needs to be more involved as a scorer earlier in the game. And he just wasn't. And then it was just all Nikola Jokic, save us. And that was kind of what happened in Game 7 2 years ago, right? The Nuggets were looking to Murray and Jokic, both gassed, in saying, save us, because no one else can do it. Well, it's too late by then. So as we kind of peek ahead at Game 3 a little bit, Nikola Jokic needs to get his earlier. And it's a balance, but I trust Nikola Jokic to be able to strike it. I just feel like last night, and even Game 1 a little bit, if we're being honest, little too deferential. This is your time. This is Jamal Murray's time. Yes, you're going to need these other guys, but it starts with the two of you. If the two of you aren't up to a certain level in any quarter, the Nuggets are going to be in real trouble. But the fourth quarter, you're not gonna win that game if your two best players are 2 for 12. But you got to give some credit to Minnesota, Rudy Gobert especially. Got to take advantage. Strike while the iron is hot. And I don't think that Nikola Jokic or the Nuggets did last night, and then it ended up costing them. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Join us Monday, May 4th at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo for the Small Business Bash. Enjoy awards, networking, festivities, and live music to kick off Small Business Week, which features workshops, panels, and networking events. Small Business Week hosted by the Pikes Peak SBDC, Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC, and the Better Business Bureau of Southern Colorado. Register now at kvor.com. Taking your thoughts on the Nuggets squandering Game 2 of their series against the Minnesota Timberwolves, 719-247-1313. Producer Ray, what have we got on the text line?
Do you think Peyton Watson would make up the difference for the Nuggets last night?
He would make a difference. He would not make the difference. I can't, and Ray and I were talking about this during the break. I understand that depth is the new thing that everybody wants in the NBA right now because of, the second apron and all this stuff that Adam Silver has done to screw up the NBA. I understand depth is important. And Peyton Watson is a key piece to the Nuggets' depth. But if you're telling me that Peyton Watson is ultimately making the difference for the Denver Nuggets, then what about every other guy who's on the team? I just can't. And there are so many moments last night that I look at it and I say the Nuggets, even without Peyton Watson, are more than capable of keeping Minnesota at bay. So does he make a difference? Absolutely he does. But if you're a championship caliber team, I just think it's weird that the idea that a bench player, because that's who Peyton Watson is, a bench player is ultimately the difference. One guy, they still have Spencer Jones. They have Valanciunas. They have Hardaway. They have Bruce Brown. They have Cam Johnson, Christian Brown. They have all of these other players. One bench player should not ultimately make the difference. But yes, Peyton Watson on the defensive end makes a difference. But I don't know that having Peyton Watson flips that game last night, to more directly answer your question. And I don't think he's shown up during this series, or at least for a little while. I think this series will be in hand for one team or another by the time Peyton Watson comes back. What else?
We have. No, that's the same one. Ryan, do you think McDaniels verbalizing our lack of defensibility will inspire our Nugs?
I hope it does. Let's get into that. Here was Jaden McDaniels after last night's game. Where did it go? Here it is.
Go out to Jokic, Jamal, all the bad defenders, Tim Hardaway, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, the whole team. Just go at them. Yeah, they're all bad defenders.
I hope that fires up the Denver Nuggets. Now, as far as Jaden McDaniels and the truth to it, he's not totally wrong. He's not. Aaron Gordon is the only guy where I go, hang on a second. Nikola Jokic is not a great defender and offers no rim protection whatsoever. Teams constantly hunt Jamal Murray on the defensive end. Tim Hardaway has never been known for defense. So Jaden McDaniels, it's harsh, but he's mostly right. This team, and I said it going into the playoffs, the only championship team of the last 30 years that would be as bad defensively as this Nuggets team are the 0-1 Lakers with Kobe and Shaq. So there is a precedent. It is possible. But this is not a good defensive team. Maybe a bit hyperbolic to throw Aaron Gordon in that mix, but on the whole, Jaden McDaniels is not wrong. And I think that if I can be a little bit optimistic, after last night, how could this not be the fuel to get the Denver Nuggets to play playoff level defense? If they are capable of it, they would have to show it in game 3, right? If I'm David Adelman, I'm playing this clip over and over and over again. Because clearly nothing else internal has gotten the Denver Nuggets to play the level of defense that they need to. So maybe Jaden McDaniels providing that external motivation will be what brings it out of Denver. And I'm not expecting the world here. The team that won the title for the Denver Nuggets was like ranked 15th. The Nuggets are never going to be as good of a defensive team as Minnesota is, but they don't have to be. Again, they are the best offensive team in the league. Bridge the gap a little bit, and the Nuggets have something. I would hope it does. I would hope it motivates the Denver Nuggets, although I didn't love this short and sweet answer from Aaron Gordon when he was asked about what Jaden McDaniels said.
Brother, I don't care.
Brother, I don't care. Well, you should, because you're being called out. And you're the one, you're actually the one, Aaron Gordon, and I know Aaron Gordon's whole thing, his whole vibe. I understand that. But Aaron Gordon is the one guy that should be like, hey, wait a minute. You can't say that about me. I don't know what Jokic or Murray or Hardaway or some of these other players can really say about it. But Aaron Gordon's the one that was done wrong by Jaden McDaniels, because Aaron Gordon is a good defender. I don't love that. That being the first response from the Denver Nuggets after Jaden McDaniels' comments. But we have 2 days now in between games, today, tomorrow, and then they'll play on Thursday. I would hope that those comments from Jaden McDaniels sticks in the Nuggets' craw and eats at them and motivates them to step up their game defensively in game 3 and beyond. I think this team is capable of more defensively. Not a ton more, but I think they are capable of more than they've shown. But man, it speaks to the lack of maturity this Minnesota team has. Why would you say something like that? And this coming from the guy that unprompted pushed Nikola Jokic in the back in game 1. Like you want the face of what I'm talking about with Minnesota? It's Jaden McDaniels. Like this is a championship team that you're putting on blast like that in the middle of a series. Even Anthony Edwards, with all his bravado and all of his confidence, does not say things like this. Now he says other things, I suppose. Where's that clip? We got to get that clip of, oh, here it is. So I shouldn't say Anthony Edwards. He wouldn't say that, but Anthony Edwards said something else when it comes to Rudy Gobert guarding Nikola Jokic.
I told him, like, bro, we ain't bringing no double team. You're going to guard him one-on-one all night and stop fouling. Like, stop going for the reaching and, because he's going to flop and they're going to call a foul. So just play him straight up. If he make a shot over you, cool. That's what he do. He gets paid to make those shots.
Calling out Nikola Jokic for flopping. Basically, he'll flop. So I guess there's a little bit from Anthony Edwards, but I don't think he would go down the line and say something like Jaden McDaniels said. Hopefully it does fire up the Denver Nuggets. And as if you can make yourself an innocent bystander in all of this, it does add even more juice to a series that we thought was going to be the most compelling of any of these first round series. It does add to the rivalry, Jaden McDaniels saying something like this. So maybe at some point getting back Peyton Watson, motivated by what Jaden McDaniels said, and just the fact that they absolutely blew it in game 2, hopefully those things come together sooner rather than later for the Denver Nuggets to up their game on the defensive end. But unfortunately, you can't go back at Jaden McDaniels and say that's not true. Because it is. And I said this earlier, the Nuggets' job defensively in game 1 was made easier because Minnesota, for some reason, just want to play iso ball. And I said yesterday, like, I thought both teams had room to grow. I thought both teams were capable of more than what they showed in game 1. And we did get that at times, more Minnesota than Denver, but we saw both teams play better at times than they did in game 1. But that was the big thing for Minnesota that I was looking at. If they just move the ball around a little bit, it would get the Nuggets out of sorts. And man, they were completely out of sorts because they just don't have, save for Aaron Gordon right now, a guy that doesn't need help defensively. They all need help. Christian Brown needs help. Jamal Murray needs help. Cam Johnson needs help. Nikola Jokic needs help. They all need help. And you keep helping and helping and helping, and the ball is being swung around. That's where Dante DiVincenzo is wide open for a 3. The last guy you want to leave open behind the 3-point arc. So this certainly last night with the Timberwolves win, the series heats up, but with some of the comments as well, which kind of leads into what I want to talk about next, because Chris Finch, man, in victory looked pretty weak last night when he was asked about the thing that he's been going on about for 3 days now, and that's the officiating. Wait till you hear what he has to say when all of a sudden the free throw totals, they were dead even last night. So clearly mission accomplished, right? You'll hear the comments of the Timberwolves head coach coming up as we continue to talk the Nuggets losing in game 2. We'll get to the Avs game 2 tonight, and you can hear that at 8 o'clock on Extra Sports 1300. In the meantime, more Drive Time Sports after this on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in. Thanks for tuning in, especially if you're watching the show anywhere you scroll at 740 KVOR and at Extra Sports 1300. You could drop a comment on the live stream like Peyton did on Instagram, saying that last night was a haunting past of Game 7 in 2024 for the Denver Nuggets. It absolutely was. Nuggets up 19 early in the second quarter. The lead evaporated in the blink of an eye, and then the Nuggets were right back in it with the Minnesota Timberwolves and another knockdown, drag-out fight in the second half. And my biggest takeaway from the Nuggets' loss last night was anything in the second half necessary? Did it have to come down to all of that? Jokic, should he have shot it or given it to Christian Brown? How gassed the Denver Nuggets were at the end of the game. The defense Rudy Gobert played. Did it have to come down to any of that? And recent NBA history tells you that teams that get up by 19 points, even in the first half, should not lose. Now, teams in the position that the Denver Nuggets were in last night, the last 5 years in the NBA playoffs, 120-3. Coincidentally, one of those three, Denver Nuggets in Game 7 2 years ago against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So it's not great that the Nuggets own such a big percentage of these blown leads. Or I lie. The three didn't even include the Nuggets because the Nuggets got up by 20 in the second half of Game 7. But the point being, there have been plenty of teams throughout recent NBA history that have been able to hang on to a 19-point lead. And I do give Minnesota credit, but the Denver Nuggets are supposed to be a championship team. They should make the Wolves pay for not coming out and having their head screwed on straight. Because I just think Minnesota, I watched that first quarter and I was like, Minnesota, man, they better buckle down here. They're a team down 1-0, staring 2-0 in the face. And they're fouling jump shooters on three-point attempts. And you can't tell me that the Denver Nuggets are not capable of putting a team like that away or just keeping them at arm's length. Right? But that 19-point lead would poof, it was gone as quickly as they got it. Quicker than they got it. Took them a whole quarter plus to get a 19-point lead. It was back even in half of that time. You just blew it. There's no other way to put it than the Denver Nuggets absolutely blew it last night. And because of all these other things that happened, the free throw conversation kind of put to the wayside, right? But I'm going to give Brandon Krisztal of Guerrilla Sports in Denver a ton of credit because it was a question that absolutely had to be asked of Chris Finch after the game. I'll play it for you and give my thoughts on the other side. Here's Brandon Krisztal of Guerrilla Sports asking Chris Finch about what he has made his personal crusade for the last 48 hours, which is the discrepancy in fouls.
Coach, in the first half, TV caught Ant pleading with the refs about the and ones. Do you think that your observations about the fouls, him talking 30 to 30 free throws, do you feel better about it tonight, obviously?
Next question.
And he has a look of disgust like, how dare you ask me that? Dude, that was all you were talking about. You talked about it after game one. You talked about it in the pregame, your pregame press conference leading in to game two. You said, maybe we should flop. Like, you made it your whole identity going into game two. And how dare a reporter ask you if you think you're politicking, you're clear politicking, even though you know as well as I do that the vast majority of the fouls that Jamal Murray drew in game 1 were legitimate fouls. You just wanted to play that game and try to get the referees on your side. And somebody, it didn't even get challenged. I mean, that is weak from Chris Finch. And now you start to kind of go back and remember when he went apoplectic with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and he was like a hero because it's about time that a coach stands up and calls out the ridiculousness of what OKC is doing. Now you kind of look and you're like, oh, he just like complains about everybody. And then doesn't want to answer a question about it. And by the way, all 4 of those and ones that Ant was, you saw on the NBC broadcast, holding up the 4 fingers, talking to the referee, all 4 of those fouls were legitimate. Like, I'm not saying that the officiating crew last night was perfect, but that they got right. So if you're going to do this, where you're going to complain about the officiating, like, answer a question about it afterwards. And you don't even have to get into your politicking. Just say that we felt that the officiating was better than it was in game 1. But to scoff and Bill Belichick next question, it's a legitimate question. Man, if you're a Nuggets fan and you didn't already dislike the Wolves, man, with Jaden McDaniels saying what he said, calling out all the Nuggets players as being bad defenders, Chris Finch doing the politicking for 2 days leading up to game 2, and then refusing to answer a question like that's just weak. Not saying you need to hang a mission accomplished banner behind you, but at least answer a question about the officiating. You made it your whole platform for every press conference you had between the end of game 1 and the beginning of game 2. But the good news is, as weak as Chris Finch is being on this whole thing, I don't think that anyone can point to the officiating last night and say it was a reason why the game went the way it did. Now, that was on the Denver Nuggets. So now, the nice thing about being in Colorado is that you have 2 really good teams this time of year, and the Colorado Avalanche are getting ready for game 2 tonight, 8 o'clock on Extra Sports 1300. I think what most people are looking at, and I even pointed this out yesterday, DJ Smith, the head coach of the LA Kings, talking about how after an extremely physical game, extremely tight checking, that he almost doubled down and said they needed to hit the Avalanche defenseman more, which he means Cale Makar, by the way. So keep an eye on that for tonight. So going into game 2 for the Avs, I think it's very much about wondering, is this thing going to blow up? Are the Kings going to cross a line here and we're going to get maybe some fisticuffs in game 2? Here's Jared Bednar on towing the line tonight in game 2.
Well, if the situation arises and something happens that I don't like, we expect our team to play discipline. We have all year. We also expect our guys to stand up for one another.
And they're going to. But that's the worst thing that the Avs can do, is get caught up in that game from the LA Kings. Right? The LA Kings have no choice. They have to go this route. Now, to Jared Bednar's point, anything egregious, you gotta make it known that you're not going to get away with that kind of stuff. But you can't play into the Kings' hands by going after everybody that takes a hit on a guy. Because that's what the Kings want. The Kings want the Avs to be somewhat distracted from the task at hand, which is scoring goals and winning hockey games. And this is a team, and I know we're the day after game 2 with the Denver Nuggets, so I understand if you're like, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Colorado Avalanche know it, because clearly the Denver Nuggets did not remember one of the lessons that they had learned along the way from that game 7 in 2024. But again, I just think that the Avalanche, you can have more confidence that they know what they need to do. They're able to toe that line. If LA takes a run at number 8, there's going to be hell to pay. Like, that's just going to be the case. But the Avalanche, I think, are going to do a good job tonight in not getting too caught up with the extra physicality LA brings to the table. And I think it's just about understanding that LA's a desperate team. Okay, they know they're at a great disadvantage, so they have to resort to this kind of stuff. And having the confidence to know, look, if we take this away from them, if we're able to not get down in the mud with them and we're able to continue to play our game, even through the extra physicality, then we got them beat, because they have nothing left. I don't know where LA goes if they can't be tight checking, if they can't be physical. If that doesn't stop the Colorado Avalanche like it didn't in game 1, it's never going to. So I think the Avs know that, and will be able to not get caught up. And they didn't really get caught up, I don't think, in game 1. I think they did a good job of that. I think they came into this series with eyes wide open. I think they knew exactly what LA was going to try and do. And they were able to still, as the cliche goes, keep their eyes on the prize, and they were able to get the job done in game 1. And we'll see if they can do it in game 2 tonight. But Jared Bednar also knows that this will be a desperate team, and his team needs to raise their desperation level as much as they can.
I think I think both teams played hard last game. You know, I thought that was a hard-fought game, tight checking game. There was desperation on both sides of it, and I think you can expect it to continue to get ramped up as the series goes on.
Again, the similarities between this Nuggets series and this Avalanche series are quite apparent. Whenever you are up 1-0, history says that you go up 2-0, it's pretty much a wrap. So can you raise your desperation level to the point that you can counter the other teams and take game 2? It's not an easy game to win tonight. And it wasn't an easy game to win last night for the Denver Nuggets, at least going into it. But the Nuggets had Minnesota in the point where they could break them and take a 2-0 lead. We'll see if the Avs have a similar opportunity tonight if they jump out early on the LA Kings. One other piece of information before we take a break here. It does appear Scott Wedgwood will be in goal tonight for the Colorado Avalanche. And I thought that maybe we'd get Wedgwood for the first 2 and then start Blackwood in game 3. If Jared Bednar was committed to the rotate, I don't know why you put in Mackenzie Blackwood after what Wedgwood did in game 1. But with the scene shifting to LA after this, maybe the Avalanche in complete control up 2-0, I think Mackenzie Blackwood more plausible for game 3. And you also look at some of the numbers and say that Blackwood is a little bit better on the road than Wedgwood is. I'm not guaranteeing you'll see Blackwood in game 3, because if Wedgwood stands on his head tonight, then I think it would be very difficult for Jared Bednar to go with Blackwood over Wedgwood for game 3. But if he is truly committing here in the first round to getting both guys some run, it did always make more sense to start Blackwood in game 3. Give Wedgwood a chance to kind of, in a way, finish what he started, right? He was part of the reason why the Avs got a 1-0 lead. If he's going to be part of the reason why they take give him the opportunity to make it a 2-0 lead, take care of home ice, go on the road, and then maybe give Blackwood a chance in game 3 and then go from there. But it does appear Scott Wedgwood will be in goal tonight for the Colorado Avalanche. Again, 8 o'clock, or let's just call it what it is, 8:22. That is the word on the street, that tonight's game will drop the puck at 8:22 tonight. So, hey, our coverage starts at 7:30. We'd love to have you starting at 7:30, but just letting you know, it's expected it will be an 8:22 puck drop from Ball Arena tonight. So, game 2, that has happened between the Nuggets and Wolves. Game 2, that will happen tonight between the Avs and the Kings. Take the conversation where you want it to go. 719-247-1313. Game 2 tonight between the Avalanche and the Kings. Well, my question for the Kings moving forward, or just a thought I have about the series as we move forward. At some point, the Kings are going to have to try and generate more offense. Like, they're just going to have to. And when that happens, I think it will open things up for the Avalanche as well. But the Kings right now seem content to, stick with the tight checking, maybe a little bit more focus on slowing down the Avalanche rather than get themselves going. Although DJ Smith, the head coach of the LA Kings, talked about how the LA Kings could generate more offense tonight and moving forward.
Yeah, we need more zone time. I mean, we have to hold on to pucks. I think we can forecheck harder, and the more we can hold on to pucks, the more we can put miles on them. And give them credit. They're the best defensive team in the league, so they don't give you much. But we got to do a better job of creating and holding on to pucks.
Yeah, still very much on brand. Right, you're what LA is trying to do is limit the opportunities that the Avalanche have. So even when he's talking about his team generating more offense, it still feels like it's also about limiting Colorado. Right, more puck possession means less puck possession for the Colorado Avalanche. But I think at some point, because of how good defensively the Avalanche are, to DJ Smith's point, the Kings are going to have to try and sell out a little bit more offensively and shift their mindset to a little bit more of how do we generate goals. That's what he just talked about as the first step in that, but eventually they're going to have to let the game open up a little bit. And I think that's just fine in the minds of the Colorado Avalanche, because I think that's when they will jump on those opportunities as well. Here's Nick Waugh, played a really good game 1. Here talking about what the team can do to improve for game 2.
I think the defensive game was really good. The breakouts in the defensive zone, we did a really good job. Obviously, we're going to try to create a little more offense. It's going to be, LA's got a really good defense, so it's tough to create in playoffs, especially, but there's different things we can do, but defensively, I think we play really, really well.
And they did, and I would expect them to continue to do it because LA just doesn't have the horses up and down the lineup that the Colorado Avalanche have. They have one really good line with Kempe, Panarin, and Kopitar. That's a really good line. And give a lot of credit to Brock Nelson's line with Parker Kelly on it for limiting them in game 1. But beyond that, Kings don't have a lot to offer. So if I look at these two teams and I say moving forward, okay, we're going to have higher scoring affairs, I think that would be more on the Avalanche. I would expect the Avalanche to score more than 2 goals, not necessarily the Kings to score more than 1. I would expect Colorado more so. I mean, the Kings could score 2 goals in a game. I'm not saying they're incapable. But if the idea is these games are going to get a little bit more higher scoring, the team that I think is still going to be driving that is more Colorado than LA. Now, speaking of that second line with Parker Kelly in there, and it's really the impact it had on the third line as well. Here's Jared Bednar on why he put Parker Kelly on line 2.
The ability to extend plays in ozone play with checking the puck back, relentless, defending details. Like, he's on pucks, he's trying to check the puck back hard in all 3 zones. He's a guy that will go to the net and pay the price at the net. He's chipped in on all, really 3 different lines this year and has over 20 goals. That's why I like him there. provides a lot of similar characteristics to the same guy, say a guy like Landy, who I can now use with Kadri and help out that line with a little bit more skill and experience. And I thought they had a good game. They had a solid game.
Yeah, so the way Jared Bednar puts it, it almost sounds like the thought was more, I gotta get more firepower on the third line, more so than I gotta get more defense on the second line. Because Valeri Nichushkin's a very good two-way forward. Brock Nelson is a very good two-way center. So I don't know that the second line needed more defense. Certainly getting Parker Kelly's defense was a good thing and really helped shut down that Kings top line. But it sounds to me like the idea Jared Bednar had was, I want to get more scoring depth than I have, and putting Parker Kelly, despite a 20-goal season, on the third line is maybe not, in the playoffs as sure a bet that you're going to get offense, offense generated from line 3 with Parker Kelly on there. So, but it worked out. That flip to put Landeskog on the third line and Parker Kelly on the second line, it worked wonderfully. And here's Nick Waugh on playing with Nazem Kadri and Gabriel Landeskog, not your typical third line mates.
I mean, a lot of experience, two really good players in this league. It's fun because they talk a lot, kind of know where they're going to be, and don't try to do anything too special. Try to keep it simple, be hard to play against, and I think that's what makes us a good line.
And somewhat ironically, you could argue that Nick Waugh was the most impactful player on that third line in game 1. And I think it's because of all the attention that Kadri and Landeskog get. But I think it's also Nick Waugh just keeping it simple, doing his thing, and opportunities came around. So I don't see much of a reason for Jared Bednar to reshuffle the deck here. I think every line really did its job. You think Arturi Lehkonen scoring a very Arturi Lehkonen goal in game 1. Certainly you expect more fireworks from Nathan McKinnon and Marty Necas moving forward in this series, but you got Lehkonen with the goal for the first line. The second line did a great job against the Kings top line. The third line looked dangerous, and the fourth line, I still contend that the fourth line was the most impressive in game 1. And I think that's a great place to start. Right? Because if it was McKinnon's line that is driving everything in game 1 and they were the best line, you would go, well, that's what we expect. Can we expect these other lines to get going a little bit? The fact that the fourth line was as impactful as it was in game 1, you expect, as I just said, for McKinnon, Necas, Nichushkin, Landeskog, Kadri, you expect them to get going. You feel like it's only a matter of time before they put their stamp on this series as well. So I think from that standpoint, game 1, very encouraging for the Colorado Avalanche, and they'll look to take a 2-0 series lead in history, regardless of whether it's the NHL or the NBA says you are in a really bad spot if you're down 2-0. We'll see if the Avs can put the Kings in that predicament coming up 8 o'clock on Extra Sports 1300. 719-24-7, 1313. The story, the whole sports world, and a lot of people outside the sports world have been talking about when it comes to Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini. I think we have the answer when it comes to what was truly going on, because Mike Vrabel spoke today. That's next here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Well, I think we have all we need to know about this Diana Rossini and Mike Vrabel thing. Mike Vrabel spoke to the gathered media in the greater New England area to address what, not really address. He didn't really give an answer, but if you listen, he told you all you needed to know.
You know, I've had some difficult conversations with people that I care about, with my family, the organization, the coaches, the players. Those have been positive and productive. You know, we believe in order to be successful on and off the field, you have to make good decisions. That includes me. That starts with me. We never want our actions to negatively affect the team. We never want to be the cause of a distraction. You know, and those are comments and questions that I've answered for the team and with the team. We'll keep those private and, you know, to ourselves. Care deeply about this football team, and I'm excited to coach them.
And then he proceeded to not answer any question that was posed to him after that. Everything was private. Everything stays between him and the team, and I can't comment on that. And it was just a really bad press conference from Mike Vrabel. But you heard that. What everyone thought was going on went on. That is as close to an admission as you're going to get. This was not two colleagues hanging out. It wasn't. It was exactly what everyone thought it was right off the bat. And what makes this even worse is that Mike Vrabel basically told the New York Post that it's completely ridiculous to be insinuating what everyone was insinuating about this. The denial was so strong out of him, and then Diana Rossini, in her resignation letter, was defiant. And that's what makes them both look so bad in all of this, in addition to the actual thing that was going on, is the fact that they were calling us all crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. Turns out we do. And I think it makes Mike Vrabel look terrible. I think it makes Diana Rossini look terrible. And for Mike Vrabel to do this after Diana Rossini basically still denied what was going on, like Mike Vrabel, I think he did this without really caring too much about Diana Rossini. This felt like a very self-serving, press conference today in the way it doesn't seem like Mike Vrabel consulted with Diana Rossini and said, hey, I'm going to do this. I think he just did this because maybe Robert Kraft told him he had to, or just the elephant was in the room and he couldn't, stay quiet any longer. And he did talk about how, he didn't want the players to have to answer for all of this and everything. But yep, what everyone thought it was at first is what it actually turned out to be. And again, the difference with Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini is that Mike Vrabel's job is to win football games, and he won all but one. I know he had other losses, but he got all the way to the Super Bowl. And Diana Rossini's job is based on her integrity and her ability to deliver news that is unbiased. So this relationship that they had going on is more problematic for someone in Diana Rossini's position than Mike Vrabel's. But that's not to say that, if I think Mike Vrabel is quite lucky that his team went to the Super Bowl. Because if he had the same year Gerard Mayo did and then this happened, I think his job would be in more jeopardy than it is. And maybe that's a sad state of affairs. But I think there's, a real reason behind why Diana Rossini doesn't have her job anymore, and Mike Vrabel's does. But it's bad for both of them. I mean, you have to question the judgment and leadership of Mike Vrabel after this, don't you? But he's going to keep his job because he won a lot of football games last year. And as that particular organization has shown through the years, you don't have to have a lot of integrity to win football games. I mean, the coincidence of something like this happening in the Patriot organization after, the stuff that Bill Belichick pulled and then what Robert Kraft got in trouble for, it's like quite the coincidence that this happened. But this is it. It wasn't just two colleagues meeting up. They went out of their way to a couple's resort for a reason. And it had nothing to do with whether A.J. Brown would get traded. But we'll all turn the page. Draft's coming up in 2 days. We can't stay on something forever. We can't stay outraged forever. There's too much stuff going on. But that doesn't mean that what Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini did wasn't completely wrong. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on that if you want. The primary topics of conversation, and we'll reset after the top of the hour with what's driving the show. Game 2 for the Nuggets and Wolves last night. Game 2 tonight for the Avalanche and the LA Kings. Ray posted a question of the day. Does last night's result make you feel differently about the Nuggets' chances in this series? And we got a comment on that. Ray, what was the comment?
From Scott. No, but it sure did change Ryan's.
I would say that's fair to an extent, because my thought going into this series was that the Denver Nuggets would win the first 2 games. Minnesota would take game 3 back at home. The Nuggets would come back and win game 4. We get one of those huge scoring nights from Ant-Man to stave off elimination, and the Nuggets would figure it out. So certainly my opinion has changed on this series in terms of, how contentious I think it's going to be. But through all of this, and I will continue to level criticism against the Denver Nuggets after the top of the hour because I think that is warranted, I still think that the Nuggets win this series. But what you really start thinking about is the very thing that you, Ray, were so worried about early on, because your big thing was you got to eliminate the Timberwolves early.
Mm-hmm.
And now, so let me ask you, has that fear creep back into you? Because I feel like now the question, certainly the Nuggets need to show you something in game 3. If they do what they did last night in game 3, then we're going to have an even more different conversation. But I wonder if the impact of last night is more towards the bigger picture of how are the Nuggets going to get through this gauntlet if they can't hold off a team that they lead by 19 at home. Is that fair?
Yeah, because it makes you start think, well, Timberwolves, Ant's hurt. You have a couple other players that are hurt. How are you going to pull off so if you go 7 with this team, and it's going to take a toll on you because these games are going to be close,
mm-hmm.
How are you going to go to a San Antonio and place a fully healthy team who's ready, who's hungry?
Right. Well, and that has no problem with their first round series. Like the Spurs game 2's tonight, right? Between the
Yes.
Spurs and Portland. That's not going to be a series. OKC Phoenix is not going to be a series. It looks like Boston is going to cruise through their first series. I know the Eastern Conference, we got to see it play out a little bit, but after last night's, after the Knicks display, right now, Denver fans and New York fans are holding hands, not in consoling each other because they're feeling each other's pain today. But you have the teams that you thought the Nuggets would have to go through are through one game. Right, we'll see. But I think that is the bigger impact of last night's game for the Denver Nuggets, is the bigger picture here on whether the Nuggets are actually ready to run through this gauntlet. If they're getting tripped up in a game 2 that they lead by 19 points in the second quarter at home, like, are they really built for this? Are they really built for getting through Minnesota and San Antonio and OKC and Boston on the other side of the bracket? I think that's what you really call into question. Yes, this series has changed in terms of, and I expected the games to be competitive, but the control that I thought the Nuggets would have in this series, that's certainly gone. So to Scott's, that's correct. I still think the Denver Nuggets get through this series. But I guess where the needle's moving for me, I already thought that the Denver Nuggets weren't going to beat OKC. Now I'm even more emboldened in that belief today. But now an effort like last night makes me wonder a little bit about next round. And I have my doubts about San Antonio and whether they're ready for this. I mean, it's one thing to beat Portland. It's another thing to beat Denver and beat OKC and teams like that. But you have to wonder a little bit. Like I can be right and San Antonio just falls to OKC in the Western Conference Final, right? I think you have to wonder a little bit about Denver moving forward beyond this round. Still think they win the series. And I do think they'll make adjustments, and I do think that they'll be motivated by what Jaden McDaniels said. And if you missed it, I'll play that for you coming up during What's Driving the Show. Not out on Denver in this series. Still not completely out on them getting past San Antonio, but the mind starts to wander. If this series ends up being a long one, whether the Nuggets are ready to go through another similar series against San Antonio, and I was always expecting the San Antonio series to be a long one. So you can answer our question of the day on Facebook if you so choose. 719-247-1313 is the text and phone line if you want to get your thoughts in that way. Want to tell you about Low T Center. Hormone health affects energy, focus. It affects your sleep, your weight, your recovery. It has such a wide-ranging impact, and basically it boils down to it just keeps you from feeling your best. But Low T Center is built specifically to address all of that. As the original TRT clinic, Low T Center continues to lead the way in safe, effective hormone care. Every treatment starts with quality. They use only pharmaceutical-grade testosterone, never compounded testosterone, so patients know their therapy meets the highest standards available. And every patient that works with a board-certified provider knows that they specialize in hormone care, and they understand how these will work with your body, and they'll give you the best treatment possible. Low T Center also provides peptide therapies and GLP-1 weight loss medications designed to support recovery, weight management, sleep quality, and overall wellness. And for a limited time, you can get $50 off on select peptides and GLP-1s. But an even lower price that they're offering is with their T-test, their testosterone test for men, free right now. So there's literally no risk. If you've been feeling a little bit run down, if you're not feeling yourself, it could be low testosterone. Why not just go and find out? The test is free. Book your appointment today at lowtcenter.com. That's lowtcenter.com. Coming up next, we'll hit the 3 stories that are driving the show. Don't forget Avs and Kings game 2 tonight at 8 on Extra Sports 1300. Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or you're watching the show anywhere you scroll. I do very much appreciate it. If you want to give your thoughts on the day's topics, you could do so by calling or texting in at 719-247-1313. Perhaps these stories spark an opinion. They are the three that are driving the show. All right, we start, and just know that this is not a rerun when it comes to the Denver Nuggets against the Minnesota Timberwolves, but certainly felt like it. Here is story number one.
He gets a pick from Jokic, turns the corner, takes a two. That one's no good. Rebound down to DiVincenzo. Outlet pass off over to Randall. 5 seconds left. DiVincenzo dunk. And the Denver Nuggets will lose game number 2 in round number 1. Final tonight here against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Denver led by 19, end up losing by 5, 119 to 114.
Altitude Sports on the call, as heard on Extra Sports 1300. Thought that the Nuggets learned. Thought 2024 Game 7, the most important lesson that could be gleaned from that series was if you have the Timberwolves down, you have to keep them down. And the Denver Nuggets didn't last night. We could talk about the fourth quarter, all day, and we've talked about it a fair amount so far in this show. Jokic passing the ball to Christian Brown, everybody being gassed in that fourth quarter, all that kind of stuff. The game was decided in the second quarter, or could have been decided in the second quarter, I think is the better way to put it. The Denver Nuggets, as Kaz mentioned, up by 19. If the Denver Nuggets are a championship caliber team that is playing the way they should be playing, they should make that lead hold up. Doesn't have to be 19 for the rest of the game, but the idea that, they lost the lead so fast. Like, that's what it is. Not that over the course of the next 3 quarters, Minnesota kept chipping away, and then the game got close at the end. You blinked, and the Nuggets all of a sudden took a 19-point lead and squandered it down to 8. Like, it was so fast. It happened all so fast. And the Denver Nuggets, it was a complete breakdown. They couldn't make shots. And Minnesota exposed them on the defensive end. More on that in a moment. They couldn't get stops. They couldn't get buckets. They refused to drive to the rim, try to draw some contact, try to get to the free throw line, do anything to stem the tide. And Minnesota was right back in the game before you knew it. And then, of course, it was a battle the rest of the way through. And the Denver Nuggets were gassed. And Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic combined to shoot 2 of 12 in the fourth quarter. But that first domino was the second. Everything was working for Denver in the first. You got to find a way to keep Minnesota from catching back up in one quarter. They outscored them by 14 in the first quarter. They lost by 14 in the second quarter. Exact same scoreline. That can't happen. It just can't. And the Nuggets have now squandered an opportunity to basically put the Wolves' playoff chances of advancing on life support. In a playoff that they were expecting them to have to go through long, grueling series, next round against San Antonio, the round after that against OKC. And now they're messing around with Minnesota in round 1 when it didn't need to be that way. I expected Minnesota to get off the mat and beat the Denver Nuggets, but last night, I thought the Nuggets could win last night, and I thought after the first quarter, of course they were going to win. And perhaps the biggest issue is the Nuggets thought, of course, we're going to win. But you got to keep a team like Minnesota down because they thrive on their confidence. They are a very confident group. And if you could take that confidence away, they're toast. Denver Nuggets didn't do that. And Minnesota just, that confidence grew and grew and grew, and the Nuggets just couldn't turn it back the other way. And it was things too, 20-3 in second chance points. The bottom line is Minnesota wanted it more than Denver. And you might say, well, that's obvious because going down 2-0 would be basically a wrap for Minnesota. Not saying that the Nuggets need to be as desperate as Minnesota, but they got to bridge the gap a little bit here. Getting outscored 20-3 in second chance points, that shows a great discrepancy between the level of want from Minnesota as opposed to Denver. I think after the first quarter, Denver thought, oh, it's just going to be this easy the whole game. And I just can't comprehend that. Why you would think that after all you've been through with this Minnesota team. But here we are, 1-1, going to Minnesota. Nuggets didn't need to make it a fight, but now they're in a fight. And I think the broader question is, do you believe that this team is capable of getting through the Western Conference if already game 2 this is happening? I think you have to wonder a little bit about that. But perhaps a fire has been lit in somebody who had a match last night with Jaden McDaniels. This is the Wolves forward after the game.
Go out to Jokic, Jamal, all the bad defenders, Tim Hardaway, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, the whole team. Like, just go at them. Yeah, they're all bad defenders.
Super likable guy, Jaden Daniels. Here's the thing. He's not totally wrong. Minnesota last night started moving the basketball and attacking the Denver Nuggets more than they did in game 1. And it exposed the Nuggets for what they are defensively, which they are not a great defensive team. They may not even be technically a good defensive team. The one guy that I think should take great umbrage with what Jaden McDaniels said is Aaron Gordon, because he is a good defender. He should take that personally to do the Michael Jordan thing. But I hope if the Nuggets have the ability, and I think they do, to be a little bit better defensively. We saw some signs post All-Star break of this team improving on the defensive end. I think there is another level to go. But if the performance last night, plus what Jaden McDaniels said, if that doesn't bring it out of the Denver Nuggets for the rest of the series, nothing will. The Denver Nuggets should absolutely take this as a slap in the face. And the fact that Jaden McDaniels would say that is wild. In this world of, don't give bulletin board material, don't give a team any more reason to beat you, Jaden McDaniels said what he said. The Nuggets have to make the Wolves pay for that. They have to show that they're capable of more on the defensive end than what they have shown through 2 games, and especially last night. If the Nuggets play good defense in game 3, you can maybe thank Jaden McDaniels a little bit. And trust me, this is not the last time we're going to talk about those comments, because it's going to be the only thing that is discussed between now and Thursday night. The players, David Adelman, are going to be asked. They didn't speak today. They're going to be talking tomorrow. This will be the biggest topic. See if the Nuggets show that they're ready to prove Jaden McDaniels wrong. That's the storyline for game 3 right there. Jaden McDaniels doesn't think you guys can play a lick of defense. What are you going to do about it? And now we go on to story number 3.
Well, if the situation arises and something happens that I don't like we expect our team to play discipline. We have all year. We also expect our guys to stand up for one another.
That is Jared Bednar in advance of tonight's game 2 between the Avalanche and the Kings. Game 1, incredibly physical, incredibly tight checking. And yes, the Kings at times took some liberties to take extra shots at the Colorado Avalanche. I would expect that ramps up tonight. The desperation level is going up from LA, and that kind of stuff is going to be more prevalent, I think, tonight. And look, you got it. It's a hockey culture. Like you got to stand up for your guys, to Jared Bednar's point. You can't let LA get away with taking cheap shots. But part of LA's game plan for tonight is to try and bait the Colorado Avalanche, bait them into penalties, get them to take their eye off of what's most important, which is winning the hockey game and going up 2-0 in the series. The Kings want them to do that. But we've seen this Avalanche team be able to do that, strike that balance that Jared Bednar is talking about. But the LA Kings are going to try like crazy to get the Avs into the penalty box and worrying about other things besides winning the hockey game. Should be an interesting game too. 8:00 tonight on Extra Sports 1300. Actual puck drop, by the way. 8:22. So, another late night. 719-24-7. 1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. Coming up next, maybe it's just my algorithm, but a thought crossed my mind last night and into today. Are there any broadcasters on the national stage in the NHL and the NBA that people actually like? Because there wasn't a lot of positive feedback when it comes to the coverage of the NHL and the NBA playoffs so far. That's next here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Got this text in, not on the text line, on the me line. Denver Nuggets backup center is a liability, and Jones is not ready for the big time. I don't know if you play Strother or what, but defensively, our big guys gotta be better. I mean, I'm not one, as you know, to pat myself on the back when it comes to things and trumpet that I was correct, but Jonas Valanciunas, I was right. Jonas Valanciunas came in for like 4 minutes and it felt like 4 hours. I mean, it was a disaster. Stepped onto the court as a complete and utter disaster. And this is why David Adelman wants to go small with the second unit. But you're right. I mean, Spencer Jones, too, it's not just his inexperience. He is coming off of an injury. And David Adelman, without naming him, said he was going to play 8.5 guys in game one. Spencer Jones is the half because he's been out, so he wasn't going to play him as many minutes. You don't have Peyton Watson. The Nuggets, where have we seen this before? Nuggets are having a problem with Nikola Jokic off the floor. Now, the numbers will tell you in game one that they won the non-Jokic minutes. Early in the game, they won the non-Jokic minutes. But we know it's just a matter of time before the Nuggets' lead slips or deficit grows when Nikola Jokic is off the floor. Like, that is not sustainable. The Nuggets are so much better with him on the court, generally. They still have issues figuring out what to do when he goes to the bench. And it's supposed to be Aaron Gordon. That's what it's supposed to be in the playoffs. But game one, that was screwed up because Aaron Gordon picked up 3 fouls, only 2 of which were legitimate, if we're keeping track. And then that screwed up their plans. And then, last night, I don't know why Jonas Valanciunas was in that game, but you look back at the end and Aaron Gordon's as gassed as anybody. So I don't know can they do that where they put Aaron Gordon as Nikola Jokic's backup? Feels like David Adelman's struggling a little bit to try and figure out the right combination here when it comes to his bench. But yeah, Jonas Valanciunas was a disaster. It is so bad the minute he stepped onto the court. That's not why the Nuggets lost the game, though. Right? There's so many things that go into a game. Like, you got to keep the main thing the main thing. Why did the Nuggets lose this game? Because they had their opportunities in the second quarter to at least maintain, if not expand, on a 19-point lead, and they lost it. Yes, the bench was a part of that. But Jamal Murray, right, second quarter was everything to the Nuggets in game one. So I know that depth matters, but I'm not going to look to the bench before I look to the starters. 2 of 12 in the fourth quarter. The performance from some of these guys in the second quarter, that was more the reason. But David Adelman's got some figuring out to do. And always game 2 is a race to adjust, right? You take in all the information from game 1 and say, okay, how can we get better? And how do we expect our opponent to get better? And how do we counter that? Well, the Wolves did a much better job of improving off of game 1 than the Denver Nuggets did. And now the Nuggets got to be the one to improve more for game 3. And I can kind of say too, not that the Wolves can play at this level that they played at last night and win more games in this series. I don't know that you look at it if you're Minnesota, other than the and ones on the threes, and say that you're capable of playing like the defense that Rudy Gobert played on Jokic. Get all the credit in the world. I don't know how Rudy Gobert can do that for 5 more games. I just don't know how he can. Anthony Edwards puts up 30. How much better can he be? It was a disastrous second quarter and a disastrous fourth quarter for the Denver Nuggets. But I think that from, the second quarter on, I don't know that Minnesota can play a lot better than they did. So that's where I say I'm not off of the Nuggets winning this series ultimately, because I think there's still so much improvement that the Nuggets can make moving forward in this series. And I don't know how much more improvement the Wolves can. I certainly felt like the Wolves could be better after game 1. That's not in question. But to go from the level they played at last night in the second, third, and fourth quarters, I don't know that they can get much better than that. But the question is, can the Nuggets? And that will be what game 3 is all about on Thursday. And this will be a long couple of days. Long couple of days for the Denver Nuggets to stew about that loss and to stew, hopefully, about what Jaden McDaniels said about them being so bad defensively and calling out each individual player on the Denver Nuggets as he went along. You hope the Nuggets use it. Right alongside any discourse on social media about the games themselves, it's almost a 1-for-1 ratio. Something about the game, but then something about the broadcast. And I'm curious. And look, I'm always going to be more I'm going to defend broadcasters, right? Because I know how difficult the job is. I know that these broadcasters, the one that I hate, and I saw it all over, that Brian Scalabrine, who works for the Celtics, is somehow pro Minnesota, and Austin Rivers, who played for the Denver Nuggets, is pro Minnesota. Like, come on, that's the one thing that I just can't. There are players that and we'll say the most extreme example is Chris Collinsworth with Patrick Mahomes. There is great admiration that broadcasters have for certain athletes, and they're going to be effusive in their praise. But you can't take it a step further and say that Chris Collinsworth wants Patrick Mahomes to win every football game. He's just in awe of what Patrick Mahomes does. There's a difference, and I'm not saying it's any less annoying to you if you're not a Chiefs fan, but there is a difference between being a Chiefs homer and just being an admirer. Like Stan Van Gundy I don't hear a lot of hate for Stan Van Gundy around these parts. I wonder if it's because he goes on and on about how great Nikola Jokic is all the time. And that's kind of what I wonder. Like, I'm not saying that I love every broadcaster on the national stage. And I think generally ESPN has lost the plot when it comes to putting on, quality sports broadcasts. I think that they do have some very talented people. And in fact, one of the biggest rising stars works for ESPN. I was fortunate enough to share a booth with him for a couple of games. I think Eric Johnson is awesome. And by the way, he'll be on ESPN's coverage tonight of game 2 between the Kings and the Avs. I think he's great. I think there are a lot of talented people. I think the production value for ESPN has gone down quite a bit. But the one thing that I cannot engage in a conversation is that these broadcasters want a certain team to win. You know who wants a certain team to win on between the Wolves and the Nuggets last night? Altitude wants the Nuggets to win. That I don't believe that the 3 guys that were broadcasting the game for NBC had a rooting interest one way or another. Ray, you at first did not enjoy the commentary team last night on NBC, but you warmed up
Yeah.
to my boy Scal.
Scal. So in the beginning, the reason I wasn't the biggest fan of Scal is because he brought up Bones Highland, and he was like, why are they booing Bones Highland? He played for Denver. It's not his fault they traded him. And I'm like, well, if you knew the full context, don't make the Nuggets look bad. Don't make us look bad. Okay?
Yeah, why did they ever let Bones Highland go?
Yeah, like there was a reason behind it. So I didn't love that. Also, and this isn't just him. This is every national broadcast, and it goes both ways. As soon as the team starts getting hot, it's automatically they're the greatest thing. They ride the wave, right? Yeah. And it's not, and it's to the point where, and it happens with Jokic all the time. He'll do like the most subtle, basic thing. Oh my God, how did he pull that off? And it just gets a little.
Stan Van Gundy is to Nikola Jokic what Chris Collinsworth is to Patrick Mahomes. And it just, yes,
that's bold.
Yes, it is. Yes, he is. He absolutely is. He fawns all over Nikola Jokic, and the reason why that's okay and the Collinsworth Mahomes thing isn't is because of the teams that they play for.
No.
And I will, but I will say this too, to be fair, why the Chris Collinsworth thing is more okay with me than with other people is because it's the Chiefs.
Right.
But we have to admit that, like, that's what I'm saying. Like I think if you want to say that someone is annoying because they're hyping up the player that you hate or the team that you hate,
right,
that's fine.
Yeah.
But to say that there is a rooting interest in that, you have the rooting interest, and that's why it's bothering you.
Right.
That Chris Collinsworth is loving all over Patrick Mahomes because you don't want Mahomes to succeed.
Well, no, Chris Collinsworth.
Not you, but
the only
you.
Chris Collinsworth, which, don't get me wrong, I don't listen to a lot of other national broadcasts when the Nuggets aren't playing. Chris Collinsworth brings up Patrick Mahomes in games he's not even in. That's the issue. Anyway, but
I think it's okay. But you know what? It's coming to an end because Justin Fields is coming for that number one job in Kansas City. And we're going to be saying Patrick who?
Yeah,
and Chris
exactly.
Collinsworth is going to fall in love with Justin Fields.
Superman about the.
Yeah. Like you brought up a really good point. And we have to have some, extend some grace towards these national people. They're being dropped in. Right. They're not following, like, who nationally is supposed to truly understand what happened with the Nuggets and Bones Highland? Like, was that a story that was anybody outside of Colorado cared about? No. Nor should they. Bones Highland on a national stage was nothing. So that was our gossip. That was our thing. So, but you do bring up a good point because nothing will set off people faster. And there was an ESPN, this was the other night, on ESPN, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is the name of the Buffalo Sabres goalie. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Okay. Steve Levy challenged, I believe it was Messier and PK Subban to be able to pronounce his name. And they could not.
You're right.
That is what will drive fans up the wall. But that you're speaking to the same thing. I think what people get bothered by the most is when national broadcasters don't seem like they know about the teams that they're broadcasting.
It seems like, well, I got all the stats and everything for this game to mention those, but when it comes to deep dive stuff, which they shouldn't, don't get me wrong, but don't mention it if you're going to say anything. But another thing I will mention that the national broadcasters do, and this is I think on a whole level, and I know I'm an OKC hater, I get it, but I'm saying, and it's hard for them, don't get me wrong, when there are clear, blatant flops from players, and Jokic is one, But when it's a Shea or a LeBron or a Luca, how they create contact. Look at it just seems like, why can't you? It seems biased.
Well, but what you're saying is bias is subjective.
Right.
That's what it is. It's subjective. It's their subjective view of it. It's but that's why I wonder, why are people out of not liking Doris Burke anymore? She rips Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Why is she not being held up as a hero among NBA national media?
Because OKC fans are turning on her, and
is that what it is?
That's what it is. Because
maybe I need to check the avatars. Is it Chet Holmgren in the avatar? Is that what I'm missing? But it's, I think the bigger issue, and I think this is the more legit. I don't buy into national broadcasters want one team to win or another. I think they want a good story a little bit. But I don't think that they come in with an actual rooting interest. I think those are regional, local broadcasters, which is part of the conversation, is that when it comes to the NBA, the regional sports networks are not allowed to do the games. So, that's also part of it, that people are losing out on that there are people that want a homer call their way.
Yeah.
And they have no way to do that, because altitude and all these other RSNs are being kicked out of the first round, the entirety of the playoffs. I think that's bothering people.
Yeah.
I think the more legitimate gripes that I see is, I understand that we're all upset about how much money all of this costs. But the one thing I think that it's reasonable for us to ask is, if we are paying this much money, can you please double check and make sure that the timeouts you are displaying are the correct number?
Oh my.
Can you make sure that you're not joining the especially if you're blocking out the RSNs, that you're not joining the Nuggets and the Wolves 5 minutes into the game? Last night, and you and I didn't know this because we were both on Peacock.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the Peacock audio cut out on mine. I text you and you said it didn't cut out on yours.
No.
Did you hear Maria Taylor when they went to the studio for that quick hit before they went to break?
No.
Did you? I don't think her mic was working.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. You probably got up in a huff and stormed off after the
I did
end
that
of the
7 times. But anyways, but I agree with you, because you're right. If we're paying for this, and I'm paying, Nuggets start 8:30, maybe give it 8:40 with all the pregame shenanigans. I don't need to watch the end of a game that is clearly over, that still has like 45 seconds, a minute. If I'm paying for this, give me a separate.
Yeah, I would say I actually take it the other way. Because I clicked on the Nuggets Wolves game on Peacock. Okay. And I mean, the music was pretty epic, but like, if we're going past the time I thought it was going to tip, like, why can't they show the end of the Hawks-Knicks game? So at least, because I'm tuning into that to make sure I get the start of the Nuggets game.
Right.
But I still have interest in what's going on in New York, especially if that's the reason why they're delaying the start time for the night. Like, give me that, and then go right to, and that's your point on those special, like with the streaming, we should be able to have kind of have our cake and eat it too. I should be able to click on an event that is the event I want to watch, and then me get the end of the previous game, but also starting that. All of that stuff should be available on these streaming platforms, and it just doesn't seem like it is.
For me, when I clicked on, and this could be another thing, Peacock having issues with everybody separately. Anyways, for me, when I clicked on Denver Nuggets, I'm just waiting, obviously, and it's that, that music and the background and all the arenas, right? Yeah. And I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, all right, 8:40. Okay, they'll get started soon. 8:45. I'm like, okay, I had to, like you said, then I had to go over and click on the New York one to see what was going on.
And channel flipping, it's like,
yeah,
forget it. That's what it's killing. Like you can't flash over to another game, especially for someone like me who has equal interest in the NBA and NHL playoffs. I want to flip back and forth, and that's nearly impossible with the streaming. So that's one of my pet peeves. But I just think, look, you can help yourself if you're Peacock, if you're Amazon, if you're ESPN, you can help yourself out by making sure that you're at least buttoned up. And there's been a lot like the crowd noise being turned down on big goals so you can hear the commentators. And I think more so, I don't think that the broadcasters are necessarily getting worse. I mean, there are more broadcasters out there, so the talent pool is being spread out a little bit more. So before you could get the A broadcast team on everything, now it's more spread out and they have to get more people on it. But I don't have so much of a problem with the broadcast. In fact, I like the crew that was doing the Nuggets game. I'm a fan of Brian Scalabrine. I like Austin Rivers.
I do like Austin.
But it's like the presentation, I think, of these streamers and throwing in ESPN too, who's gotten into the streaming game. I think that's the frustration, and it just adds to everything else. And then the little comment where Brian Scalabrine didn't understand why Bones Highland is no longer on the Denver Nuggets. Or I think another one was Austin Reeves kept calling Christian Braun.
Well, you just called him Austin Reeves.
I did.
Yeah.
Austin Rivers. So shame on me. Austin Rivers, you're off the hook. Sorry. I do like Austin Reeves too, by the way.
I know. Anyways, one more suggestion I would have for them. No more 8:30 start times for playoff games.
That's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. You can't. It's never, ever.
That's another reason
happen.
why everybody hates the broadcast team is because they're cranky because it's the 11:45 and I have to go to bed. I have to wake up in a couple hours.
Yeah, but that's welcome to life in Colorado. It's always been that way, but I defy you to find a better time zone to watch sports in than the Mountain Time Zone. It is the best. But yes, the nights can get late, and
honestly, I thought we were going to overtime last night.
Yeah,
and it's going to be 1:00 by the time I get to bed.
I knew that it was over when Christian Braun missed the first.
Oh, I knew that
when Christian Braun went to the. Oh, so you're saying you thought the game would go into overtime earlier?
When we got within 2 before we knew Jokic went down there, I'm like, Jokic is going to find a way to score this.
Then we're going, and then the game's going over to
and I was like, okay.
And then he gave it to Christian Braun, and you saw the look on Christian Braun's face, and you're like, yeah, he's not making these free throws.
Exactly. But I did see old Christian Braun come out last night when he would make shots and he would flex and go crazy. I'm like, maybe he's back, and then the free throws came up,
But that's not a spot you want him in.
That's not, no.
You want him, but that's the other argument. Okay, the Jokic floater, but how about you throw a lob up to Christian Braun?
Right.
Like you would feel more confident in that than giving him the ball on the ground and having to fight through the defense and all of that kind of stuff. Just float it up and let him throw it down.
There's so many, like, especially because you saw 3 defenders plus, like, basically everybody knew Jokic was either going to take the last shot. So if I'm Jokic, I'm getting in there, and Tim Hardaway is right behind me, wide open. Why am I not looking there? Again, it's ticky tacky because you can say, oh well, there's a few shots Jamal missed, there's a shot Jokic missed, but I get what you're saying. At the end of the day, you have to make those free throws.
Well, and Nikola Jokic admitted that he should have taken the shot. So David Adelman was deferring to him and saying he's always makes the right play. Well, Nikola Jokic stepped up later in the press conference and said, I didn't make the right play.
Yeah. Then that's why I'm glad, because it feels like no one will take accountability, right? No one will ever put, he did the wrong thing. Everybody always says, Jokic knows what he's doing. Jokic, if he knows that play, it's like, No, he made the wrong play.
But right, but you're not going to be the one to say that. You're not.
No.
You're the coach with everything Jokic does, because there's a lot of truth to the fact that he always makes the right play. I talk about how he always makes the right play, but he's not the Pope. He's not infallible. Like, he can make a mistake. And I understand it's not David Adelman's place necessarily to call him out, but I think we all kind of knew that wasn't the right play, and Nikola Jokic admitted as much that it wasn't. But again, not the reason they lost the game. But when you have such an awful night like the Denver Nuggets had last night, you start to go back every little thing, and man, it was the second quarter. That's where that game was lost.
Yeah.
719-24-7-1313. Back after this. I mean, they might as well just announce that Nikola Jokic isn't winning the MVP because today is the right day to do it. Frustrations are already high regarding the Denver Nuggets, but today it was announced that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the clutch player of the year. Jamal Murray did not get a single first place vote, yet he was a finalist, which is a tiny win for me and my wanting to abolish ranked choice. I don't care the number of second place votes you get. To me, the finalists should be Shai, Brunson, and either Cunningham or Jokic, because they were all the ones that got first place votes. Those were, I mean, think about that. Nikola Jokic got more first place votes than Jamal Murray, but Jamal Murray is a finalist. Like, unless you decided that this guy was the clutch player of the year, those are the only people I want to be finalists. Shai got 96 votes. Jalen Brunson got 2. Cade and Nikola Jokic each got 1. Those are your finalists. In fact, shouldn't even be finalists. It should just be everybody's a finalist. You could pick from everybody. But Shai wins that award. I don't know that that's the one that Nuggets fans were, clamoring for, but Shai won it going away. Let's see if the MVP voting goes about that same way. I believe the MVP is actually going to be announced Super Bowl Sunday. Fun fact. They wait so long. So dumb. What?
Like, we all know. You know what I'm saying? Don't
just rip the Band-Aid off already.
We all know who it's going to.
Yeah, I just don't, like, why wait? They're releasing Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Here comes Clutch Player of the Year. Are we going to hear about Rookie of the Year tomorrow? And it's like you're rolling all these out, and then you're going to wait till the second round to tell us the MVP?
Because, like, the playoffs don't affect it, right? It's not like, all right, let's see who has a better performance, Shai or Wemby.
But the play-in does. Shouts to Bill Simmons.
Shouts to him. But it's not like that. So what's the point? And the funny thing is, a lot of the voters come out on social media and tell their vote, right? They say, yeah, this is who I voted for. So there's actually like trackers. And so it's like, we already know. Just rip it off.
And look, there were years where we had to wait a long time for Nikola Jokic to be named MVP. The point is, why are we waiting so long?
Why not?
If you have the votes, let's go.
Or just do if this is a thing, do a NBA awards show or something like that, or the ESPYs or something. That's when you
like the NHL does.
But
see, now you're playing with fire, because I will say with the NHL, and I know that the Avalanche are going to be well represented. I will tell you that when most teams are eliminated, the eagerness from fans for the awards dissipates quite a bit.
Right.
So I get the idea of having, I get the idea. I don't love the award show idea. And plus doing it when so many fan bases have like moved on from the hockey season, I feel like it takes a little bit of the luster away from it. Like, I feel like you should strike while the iron is hot and make these announcements, or just roll them out. Like, I understand building up to the MVP, but it's like we're doing this all week, and then we're going to sit there with like this week or two gap before we find out who the MVP is. Doesn't make sense. And with the NHL, we got to wait even longer.
Then voting needs to end a month before the season ends. So then right as season ends, bam, we'll announce it.
Oh, that's problematic.
65. 65.
Yeah,
there's no
we're
right
having
way.
all these, and we're wondering. No, I think there is a right way, and that's you gather the votes. You're expecting people to turn in their votes expeditiously, right? There's a deadline.
Yeah.
And then they start rolling out. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
And fine, you could skip Saturday and Sunday, that's fine. But like, roll these out.
But you can't miss that Sportsmanship of the Year award.
Yeah, I know. And a clutch player is about as meaningful to me as sportsmanship is. The sportsmanship award is. But yeah, I get why the NBA does it, and because they want to put it at a time when maybe some momentum has dropped off because it's not game like we have right now. But that you just sit there and you go, why don't we know the MVP? So that appreciate you joining me. It wasn't the most fun circumstances to meet under. Hopefully the Avs can pick us up 8:00 Extra Sports 1300.